to Boundaries and Bullshit. I'm your host, Jovan Williams. Here at Boundaries and Bullshit, this is a healing community. So if you're here, I hope that you are here to learn, to grow, and to also interact. I want to hear from you, okay? I'll be sharing later on how you guys can get in contact with us and how we can help each other heal, learn from one another, and create healthy communities, because that's what we deserve and that's what we're going to need if we're going to survive, okay? So today I want to familiarize you with our segments. So first we'll have today's bullshit. So today's bullshit can be complaints, no matter how big or small, because in this life, especially when it comes to Black women, we usually do not have the space to complain or to simply share our concerns and they be taken seriously or just even heard, okay? So I want for this to be a place where we can share like what's going on, as well as I want to hear like some boundaries that people are putting into place, okay? I want to hear about some ways that people are experiencing joy as well, but we'll get to those things, okay? But the first segment can be things that are bothering you that are happening in society. They can be personal, they can be global, it doesn't matter. The second segment is what had happened was, okay? So that is story time. So that is where I will share a story that I would like for you guys to know about, and then I'll also open it up for you guys to email me about, you know, different stories that you maybe want to share anonymously, of course. And then also any boundaries that you're putting in place based off of that story. And so I want us to be able to learn as much as possible, because a lot of times we don't see what healing looks like, especially for Black folks, or what it looks like beyond being involved with religion. So I want to make it applicable and make it make sense that anybody can do it, whether you're in therapy or not. Even though I'm a champion for therapy, I want to be sure that people have access, especially with the way that this economy is going. We should still have access to healing and not be penalized for our government's lack of care of our well-being, okay? So the third segment is today's boundary, because the price went up, okay? So the same things that we accepted yesterday is not what we're accepting today, okay? You can always change your mind. And so this is another opportunity, like I said, to email me, and I will give that email information at the end of the episode. But I want to hear about what boundaries are y'all putting into place. What are you saying no to? What are you saying yes to yourself about, okay? And then lastly, we'll close out, and, you know, and definitely if there's a topic that you guys want to hear about, or if there's something that you want to, you know, you want me to address, definitely feel free. And I can try to make an episode maybe relevant to that, okay? So let's get into it. So today's bullshit. I would say today's bullshit is just experiencing divorce. It's not easy, and I understand why people avoid it. However, it's also something like single parenthood I would not wish on my worst enemy, because it's been an experience. And so I would say that's today's bullshit. And as far as what had happened was, I wanted to share who I was as a young girl. As I continue on my healing journey, I'm finding more and more that I'm returning to that little girl, little Jo, right? Little Jovan that, you know, apparently was a lot, right? That was a big personality, and you know, my mother thought that I was going to be an actress, big emotions, very sensitive, was called crybaby, right? And so artistic and creative and imaginative. And I felt like I lost a little bit of her along the way, along the journey, right? Because so much of the world tries to tell us how we're supposed to be. And I was in so many environments that said that that was not okay, where me at 35 am learning that it's okay to be my full self, even if people think that it's too much. Okay? So I was born in 1989 in St. Louis, Missouri. I was born to Linda, and Linda was born to Martha, and Martha was born to Willa Mae. So I grew up in a matriarchy initially, right? Where there were a lot of women in my family, and my mother was a single mom, and she worked really hard. She worked multiple jobs, and back in the day, grandparents were able to keep their grandkids, and so I did not immediately go into daycare. My great grandmother actually kept me, and she kept me up until the time that I was in 5th grade. So from birth until 5th grade, I was at her house the majority of the time, right? And so, I miss that lady. Having a moment. But yeah, so when I was a little girl, I grew up around a lot of family, and I was always told that I was very smart, very mature for my age. And I remember being really excited about like going to school. I remember I was always like performing in some kind of way, reenacting maybe something that I saw on TV. I was able to keep my own company. I was an only child initially, and so sometimes I would play like solitaire by myself because there were no other kids around usually when I was at my great grandmother's house. So I learned how to keep myself entertained. I learned how to enjoy my own company, but I also really, really, really wanted, a sibling at some point. But then I was also okay with being an only child at the same time because our family was really close, and so most of the times I had cousins to play with and stuff like that, and that was okay with me. How else would I describe myself? Honest. I was very honest. I've always been very honest, and I had an excellent memory, still do. Couldn't really tell me something and then I forget about it. That pissed a lot of people off. But yeah, I just remember feeling different, but not really knowing what the difference was. And so to like be in my mid-30s now and like look back on little me, and I'm like, oh my God, little me was dope. And big me is still dope, right? But it took me a while. So it feels like this current stage of my life is going back to who she was, because she was always okay. Okay? She was always perfectly imperfect, just the way that she was. And I remember just not really feeling like I had a place other than like being with my mother or being with my grandmother or like that side of the family. So just always kind of feeling in the margins and always feeling as though I was expected to conform to whatever other people wanted me to be. And that's not okay, right? And so to slowly transition to being somebody that that recognizes that I'm a big deal and I have always been a big deal is life-changing. And I'm doing this podcast because I know that there's other folks like that out here, right? Other people like me that just want to be their most authentic selves, that wants to figure out how they can return home to themselves, right? And so the biggest thing that I can tell people is that you are okay. And when I worked with kids, I used to always tell like my nerds or the weird kids or the emo kids, like, you are going to be a dope ass kid or a dope ass adult when you get older, because you know who you are, right? You're not a follower. You're somebody that marches to the beat of your own drum, and you don't allow society or others, your parents, your friends, keep you from being your authentic self. And I did not have that permission, right? And so me thinking back to that sensitive, bubbly kid that loved to perform, I eventually lost that spark. And that's hard to like reckon with, like, oh wow, it didn't just happen, like that spark didn't just leave, it was deliberately like stomped out by negative comments, right? By being called white, by racism, by colorism, by all the things, right? And patriarchy, and or just even living in the hood, right? And knowing that being a bubbly black girl makes you a target, right? Makes you a target for mean girls sometimes, make you the target for physical violence sometimes, makes you the target for a number of things, unfortunately. And so I just want little me to know that she was always enough and that she was always worthy. And just because the world didn't always reflect that does not mean that there was anything ever wrong with you. So I hope whoever needs to hear that hears it. Yeah, so it was interesting growing up, right? So my mother was single when she had me, but I knew I had a father, but he was always in and out. And there was never really any explanation for him being in and out. That's just kind of what he did. And I remember how horrible that felt as a kid, right? And never wanting my child to feel that way, of like waiting for somebody to come and get you when they say that they're going to come and get you and they don't show up. That's really hard, right? And so I don't know how that impacted part of my story. I definitely added to my anxious attachment style, right? Always wanting to perform or always wanting him to come and him being avoidant. And so that was tough. And then being in this, I grew up in a blended family, and the family didn't always necessarily feel blended. It felt like we just kind of melted into each other as opposed to intentional actions to blend the family together. Still wrecking my mind with some of those things, but yeah, I didn't have the spaces that supported me to continue to be my most authentic self. And I remember being really excited about going into school. And back in the day, your birthday had to be before Labor Day in September. Your 5th birthday had to be before Labor Day in order to go to kindergarten. And with me having what's considered a late birthday in October, I was not able to start kindergarten until I was 5, turning 6 that October. So I was a little bit older than some of my classmates at that point. Some classmates were around my age, but many were younger. And I remember going to like my school interview, and the principal, a white man was doing my, he was like kind of testing me and having me count different things and, doing like an assessment. And I just remember how nice he was, and I remember how nice the school was, and just being really excited about school. And as I'm thinking back on elementary school, it's like I have some positive memories, but I have a lot of negative memories. So something to share also about me is that coming from St. Louis, they had a program that was nicknamed DSEG, short for desegregation. And these schools were basically there. They were schools that were in the outskirts of the city, and they were formerly considered like predominantly white schools. And so in order to integrate those schools, they had a bus program that they bused Black kids from all over the city to the outskirts to integrate the schools. That also helped a lot of us that lived in the city who had struggling schools. So in exchange for, better access or more access to education, we traded that for racism. So I'll definitely be sharing some stories, because I have a lot of stories as far as why I feel as though I lived a very similar life to Chris Rock when it came to his show Everybody Hates Chris. But today's boundary, I would say I'm not really accepting no these days. I would say that for the most part, I am taking ownership of my life, and I am the main character of my life, and I don't allow other people to determine my destiny. And I think sometimes when we are in relationships, we can make ourselves smaller. Sometimes when we become mothers or parents, we can make ourselves smaller. Our needs don't matter as much. But I am standing squarely in, no, I come first. I am the main character of my story. And I would say, for example, recently I have been having some challenges, and I had been going back and forth about taking a leave of absence, and I decided that I was going to be the person to make that decision and no one else, right? I wasn't going to allow someone else to determine when that time would happen, or when the perfect time would be, or any of that. It's like, nope, this is what I need, so let me know what I need to do so we can make this happen. And that felt super empowering. And I would say, just really leaning on my boundaries without fear of being perceived as a bitch has been super empowering, especially as a Black queer woman, right? To be able to say, if you think that I'm an angry Black woman, okay, but I still need you to get that done. Thank you. Right. And I hate the phrase standing on business, but very much so about me every time, making time, because if you don't, the world depends on us not to take up for ourselves. The world depends on us to just take it. And so when you give pushback, you begin to see how people really view us, right? Or how people view you, right? When people don't honor your boundaries, when people don't respect you, you get to see it. It shows itself, and we just can't ignore it. And so, that's been one of my lessons lately is I don't play about me, and I'm not gonna let anybody play with me. So, short first episode, but just to put it out there, give you a taste. Feel free, like I said, to email us at boundariesandbullshit@gmail.com. It's spelled exactly the same way it's spelled as far as the actual podcast. So it's BOUNDARIES AndBullshxt@gmail.com. Okay. So like I said, I would love to hear from y'all. I look forward to continuing to watch my community grow. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to getting to know you, and just know that authenticity is always going to get you there. And these boundaries are rated E for everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.